And welcome, folks, to the first ever, probably, I don't know if anyone has done this, I just thought it'd be fun to do. I explained it in the post, but welcome to the first ever Best of the Best Death Battles Winners Tournament. Now, I had this idea for a while, but we haven't had enough competitors for a while to really, I feel, implement it. But since we've now done the most recent season, and we've got, as you can tell, this is not a good screenshot. It's much more legible when in the community post. I felt we should do the tournament. Obviously, we have more than enough to fill out the brackets, but surprisingly, even with this, and I can't remember how big this particular bracket actually was or is. If I'm not mistaken, this is like a 30-30 bracket, something like that. And with each match, there still wasn't enough characters to fill up the entirety of the brackets. So, yeah, even though there's well over 100 death battles now, that I still wasn't able to fill up. So, there might be a few, there's a few people who aren't matched up in the proper way, but ultimately it worked out. But the way this broke down was this. I took every character, I used the randomizer. I basically put those characters against each other, put it in the bracket form, and there you go. Now, a few things I did not do. When it came to group battles, like for instance, oh god, I can't remember I can't remember one of the groups. If I know we've done group battles before on this series, or they've done group battles. I just can't remember who exactly. But yeah, like a group of individuals did not count towards it. Ties did not count. I only counted an individual if they've won more than one death battle once. Any other stipulations that I covered there? That being said, if a battle had repeated, like if they redid a battle and the victor actually came out differently, like with Mario and Sonic, I chose the winner of that one because they did the battle twice. And you might see that Broly is got a bye. Turns out I missed Sonya Blade somehow when I did it, so he'll end up fighting Sonya Blade. Spoiler, guess who's going to win that fight? But still, I mean, it's only fair. So ultimately, that's how this worked out. I've got this took me a while to make all these images. I got all the images ready, and basically what we're just going to do for this particular video is, well, for any of the videos, is just talk each match. I'll go into some various lengths. I'm not going to spend like an entire video's length talking about each particular matchup. I'm just going to give my relative quick take, whether it be 30 seconds, maybe a few minutes, on each match on who I think would win the fight. Now, last thing you may see in the title is this is part 1 of round 1. There are so many matches in this first few rounds that I had to slim it down a little bit. Because that's just going to take way too much time in the video. But without further ado, let's break it down and see what we think here. This first match in round 1, or part 1, was Scrooge McDuck versus Voltron. Obviously, this was kind of a no-brainer. Scrooge McDuck obviously can't take on Voltron. Even with all of his money and resources, in theory, if Death Battle were to allow him to make a mech of his own, there's little chance it would have enough power to take on Voltron. If the Megazord can't beat Voltron, Scrooge McDuck's not going to beat Voltron. So Voltron wins the day. Then you go to round 2. Venom versus Sub-Zero. Now, this one was a little bit more interesting. We know this because the symbiotes can survive in space. We know that Venom has at least some cold resistance. His primary weakness is heat and sound. Those are his two biggest weaknesses. And he's actually gained a bit of resistance to sound. So the question I had was, would Sub-Zero be able to create enough cold to overwhelm Venom's overall, not immunity, but, resistance to cold? And the correct answer to that is absolutely he can. So, as they calculated in Death Battle, he was able to somehow make cold attacks that were multiple times colder than Absolute Zero, which is not possible to do. Add on the fact that he's a ninja master with many different cryo attacks, things along those lines. So, and if Venom tried to possess him with the symbiote, he would freeze the symbiote. He would just freeze him outright. So, yeah, Venom just doesn't actually have an ability that I think would be tailored to taking out taking out Sub-Zero. So yeah, Sub-Zero I think takes that fight. Oh, there we go. There we go. Next up we had Android 18 versus Smokey the Bear. Now, one is a cartoon fight. Let's be clear. What's a cartoony character? But they did establish how he could freeze time, grow into giant sizes, change landscape, alter reality to some degree. But if we're being honest with ourselves, I think it's pretty obvious that Android 18 isn't McGruff the crime dog in that sense. She would, I think, quickly overwhelm Smokey with pure power or martial arts ability. So I would go Android 18 in that. But in the cartoony world of the cartoony land of the world we live in, anything is in theory possible. So I'm not arguing against really anyone who could think Smokey would win, giving the nature of Smokey. But I think most of us would probably go with Android 18, me and myself included. Last thing I should note, too, is that this is all my personal opinion, based on some of the information that Deathbattle has given, obviously. So keep that in mind as well. Because let's be clear, not everyone agrees with Deathbattle. Not everyone does. And Deathbattle is not the de facto versus series in the world. Like, they are not the end-all, be-all to, this is the definitive answer to who would win. No, they're just like anyone else. It's their opinion based on the research they do. If you have a different opinion, that's cool. So next up, we had Zero versus Kenshiro. This one, yeah, I'll admit, this one I had to think on a little bit. Because Kenshiro can just blow up a guy just by touching him. He can literally just walk through skyscrapers falling on top of him. He's that powerful. He can turn intangible thanks to his, Zen nothingness abilities. So I'm like, okay, does Zero really stand a chance against this guy? Well, Zero, first off, isn't a human. He's a cybernetic being. Despite the fact he has a human face, he is not human. He doesn't have organs. So the one touch of death isn't going to work on Zero in the same way it works on a human. I'll admit, I never watched Fist of the North Star. It's one of the few things I never watched as a kid in terms of popular anime. So I don't know how he really works against machines very well. But I'll add on to the fact that Zero was able to survive a explosion in the face that was of similar capacity of the meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs. And he's just highly technologically advanced, has multiple weaponry, including basically a lightsaber. It's not what it's called, but that's more or less what it is. Then you he's also got advanced, martial arts, I'm sure, installed into him as well. I know people are probably going to hate, this is going to be probably the first one where people go, what, are you nuts? I'm going to go Zero on that. I think Zero is a very different opponent than what Kenshiro normally faces. So my money, Zero for that. Then we got next up on the list is Sora versus TJ Combo. It's Sora. And mostly because TJ Combo is just, he's got some abilities, sure. He's got his killer instinct and all that. But Sora's got enough multiple powers, blades, weaponry, all that he would make quick work of DJ Combo. Let's be real here, folks. Let's take a moment and just recognize our truth. I do think he would beat TJ Combo pretty hard. After that, we had Wonder Woman versus Black Panther. Look, these two meeting up. I even saw someone do something like a romantic, or kind of not a fanfic, but a romantic drawing, of the two of them. I think they can make a great power couple. In terms of how powerful they are compared to each other, I guess the question we have to ask ourselves pretty much right on the spot is Wonder Woman sword capable of cutting through vibranium? And how strong is something like adamantium and vibranium in the Marvel universe compared to the DC universe? Because in the right context, Wonder Woman can cut an atom with her sword. I could tentatively say that it might be able to cut through the vibranium, but because the vibranium also absorbs, shock and stuff like that, it is a bit of a tough call. That said, it can be overloaded. I'd say they're probably near equal in terms of actual just hand-to-hand combat. In terms of melee combat, she's got the edge, no doubt, in terms of hand-to-hand and weaponry. But in terms of straight hand-to-hand, they might be equal. But unfortunately, and I'd argue, and T'Challa's probably more intelligent than she is in terms of just sheer genius. But that's unfortunately where all T'Challa's equality and advantages end, because her pure physicality and years of experience are more than enough to keep up with anything T'Challa can dish out. So unfortunately, while I think it would be a cool fight to see, just like, I mean, look at those images together. Those are pretty badass images to put together. It would be Wonder Woman. It would. Black Widow versus Sephiroth. I don't think we really need to talk much on this one. Sephiroth is kind of well out of her league. She's coming up against some tough opponents for sure, and maybe she'd actually be able to hit him with a well-placed bullet or something like that, but that wouldn't do much more than just annoy him. Ultimately, yeah, Sephiroth takes that win, no problem. Then we have Spyro versus Raven. Oh, this is an adorable matchup. So Spyro, I'm sorry, it's just making me kind of smile just even thinking about it. Spyro versus Raven. I think it would be an adorable fight, really, to watch. Spyro, unfortunately, gets his ass kicked. Spyro certainly could dish out some damage to Raven, though. I'm not arguing that he is weak. In fact, he's very much not weak. He can shred things on a molecular level. That's how powerful that Spyro really is if he goes all out. The problem just comes from Raven is kind of haxed in many ways. Her upper limits are not very well known. And what type of power she does have is just something Spyro isn't really tailored to take on. So, yeah, even though I think it'd be a fun fight, I honestly think they would just end up being friends at the end of the day. I would give that win to Spyro. Then we have Leon Kennedy versus King Dedede, or DDD. There we go, yeah, Dedede. Sorry, I didn't play Kirby, so I didn't actually know how to say his name. This one, I'll admit, because Leon actually is superhuman to some degree, I did have to factor in that when thinking about how this fight would play out. So it did take me a bit more to think on it. But ultimately, King Dedede, because he actually has physical abilities and can match Kirby of all people, who's not weak, surprisingly. Like I still don't agree with the Majin Buu versus Kirby thing, but Kirby is not weak. Yeah, King Dedede would more than likely beat Leon in a fight. It's just that it's a matter of Kirby survives much more than what Leon could dish out, and he can dish out much more than Leon's generally used to. So that's my thoughts on that. So King Dedede wins that fight. Next we had Ultron versus Rio. Now this is I thought this was a kind of fun fight, because unlike with the Ultron versus Sigma or an Ultron versus Brainiac fight, this is not like a fight where Ultron's going to hack his opponent. So it's a matter of, is Rio powerful enough to destroy Ultron? Unfortunately, the fact that Ultron is usually composed of adamantium, vibranium, or some combination of the two, means that Rio probably doesn't have the actual ability to destroy Ultron. And despite how strong and formidable Rio is, he's only human. He will eventually tire out. And that's all Ultron has to do, is wait his ass out. And then he will take the win. So Ultron, I think that, yeah, he would beat Rio. Johnny Cage versus Optimus Prime. Let's roll out. Honestly, these two would probably just rock a fight together. Just say, let's go, Optimus! Say, roll out, Cage. But let's be honest, though Johnny's beaten some powerful dudes, like he's beaten Goro, he's got some actual magical ability too. It's a giant machine that is sentient and could just squish him. So, yeah, it's Optimus. It is. Optimus survived literally an explosion that would on Cybertron that could be seen from space. He literally helped to beat Unicron, a planet-sized godlike transformer who ate planets. Yeah, it's Optimus. Next, we have one that I found was interesting: Lucy versus Aang. This one is interesting because, as far as I know, Aang could not see or sense the her, I can't remember what they're called, her invisible arms. So that might be a problem for Aang. But Aang has enough awareness of his terrain that he might know something's off. Add on to the fact that Lucy, likewise, can only counter so much of Aang's arsenal because she can only see so much of Aang's arsenal. She can't really counter the wind very well because you can't see. I mean, you can see gusts of wind, sure, but um, it's interesting because Aang has so many elements plus the Avatar state. The question I think ultimately came down to is the Avatar state of Aang capable of overwhelming Lucy? Unfortunately, I don't think so. I don't think they ever really gave the numbers on Aang's Avatar state. We know that Lucy literally could hit with the force of a nuclear explosion when it was all said and done. It's how she beat Carnage. But I mean, it's one of those fights where if someone wanted to argue for Aang, I certainly could see the argument for Aang because we never in the original series saw truly how powerful his Avatar state was, particularly when he was in control of it. We saw he can manipulate all the elements. I did love it when he compressed those rocks and shot them like bullets. That was just awesome. But I want see my fandom wants to go with Aang. But my head, knowing the facts that I know, at least from Deathbattle, kind of wants me to go with Lucy. I think I ultimately got to choose Lucy in this, but I will not argue against someone who favors Aang in it. I will not argue it. Unfortunately, for this tournament anyway, it's going to be Lucy who takes the win. But again, that one's a close one. Another really close one to look over. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Is Jack versus what her name is. Samurai Jack versus Mitsura from Persona 5 or whatever. So yeah, because of her persona, it can act and do many things on its own, and then she can just resummon it with a gun. I had to think like, is Jack someone who can survive that long enough to take her out? And honestly, Jack compared to her, there's no contest. She can beat her in a straight fight with no problem. None whatsoever. He's just too fast, too well trained. His sword can cut through adamantium, and it's a holy weapon. That's not a question. The question is, can he beat her persona? That's the question, which I believe is Joker, isn't it? Is her persona? I might be wrong on that. But can he beat her persona? I think it would be difficult because he would be focusing on two different bodies, and the persona would come and protect her, and the persona can be defeated after a while, but then just brought right back. And that, I think, would be Jack's problem, is could he stop her from doing it? The first time, no. He sees her fire the shot, and the persona comes back. However, Jack has fought Aku, has fought with Spartans against demons, has fought monsters, has fought so many, and just kept driving forward. His endurance is nuts. That I think after, and his analytical skills are top notch as well. After seeing her fire the first shot to bring the persona back, he quickly realized that he can't let her do that again. So after he takes the persona down the second time, he quickly rushes, grabs her hand, and then ends it. Seeing as this is a death battle, just stabs her straight through the chest. So yeah, I gotta go Jack in this fight. But again, this was a really close one. Like I could see Jack losing, but I feel like Jack's gonna win more than times than not. I would have liked to have seen Nightwing try get a little farther in here, but it is what it is. They aren't all going to be winners. And Nightwing versus Darkseid. I mean, I saw in the comments basically people are saying, okay, the question is who's going to come in second, because it's clearly going to be Darkseid who wins. Or it's gonna come down to Darkseid, Beerus, and Broly. And look, I'll be flat honest. I haven't done the matches out that far. I'm going round by round, so I actually don't know how I really compare some of these individuals with each other. That's why it's fun to do these things at random. But yeah, let's not mince words. Darkseid takes this fight in a well-written comic, because Nightwing is the protege of Batman. I could so see him taking a win over Darkseid in the right context, because Batman's done that. But in an actual death battle where you don't get that planning and anything like that, no, it's Darkseid. Every day, all day, it's Darkseid. No, I don't mean. You're supposed to be gone here. Next, we had Roshi versus Shazam. Again, it's one of those things where I love Roshi. Roshi's the man. But this is a freaking mismatch right here. Like, Roshi at his strongest could destroy the moon. He could. And, like, we need to acknowledge that 100%. Like, that's no joke. In fact, he could probably even, because the fact that he destroyed the moon with such ease, too, and the fact that he got stronger and never stopped training, means that he could probably take on, maybe destroy the planet. Because remember, he does that in his full power, like, muscle form, his muscle state, where he's releasing full power. He can't keep up that power very long because of his age and just how much strain that puts on his body. But in theory, yeah, he could destroy maybe a planet. But Shazam can also do that, and Roshi's power is much more taxing and limited at its full capacity than at its full capacity than Roshi's is. So yeah, unfortunately for anyone who's wishing Roshi takes this fight or wishing Roshi made it to the end of the game, sad to say that's not the case. Roshi loses the fight pretty hard. Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern versus Ghost Rider. This one was a tough one to figure out who wins, because the question is, because we know the ring protects them from like psychic attacks, but that doesn't mean it protects their soul. So like Ghost Rider could still target Johnny's soul. What else? Hal's soul, definitely. The ring doesn't protect against that. Both have power at their max on a universal level. So the question is, who comes out on top in this? Can Hal actually maybe like keep the Ghost Rider's soul or Zarathos' soul like separated using the Lantern Ring? I don't think we've seen the ring do something like that. It's a tough matchup. One, you have a guy whose willpower is unparalleled. The other is basically a demon of vengeance, more or less. Ultimately, I had to lean towards the Ghost Rider on the simple ground that Johnny, to the best of our knowledge, doesn't have anything holy to take out the Ghost Rider, which is basically the only thing that generally works done. Defeating the Ghost Rider, killing the Ghost Rider. Short of exercising or having somewhat of a magical background or being able to just obliterate something, like out of existence. Yeah, again, that's a tough fight to pick, but I went Ghost Rider in that fight. Mechagodzilla versus Shoto Todoroki. Kiro annihilates Shoto. Shoto's best attack we've seen was at the UA sports festival, and that wouldn't even come up to Kiru's like waist. And Kiru's just like, okay, squish. Like, it's fine. He survived being in the episode of his Absolute Zero Cannon, for God's sake. So, yeah, that's no. Kiro wins every day, all day. See, I told you it'd be Mechagodzilla, not Dragonzord. Might Guy versus Hiei. Yeah, that one, because we've seen Hiei versus Sasuke, and he beat Sasuke. This one's a tough one, because of how Might Guy, but he's only a physical fighter. That's the thing. So, yeah, he has some attacks that could fight from distance, but let's be honest. Morning Peacock isn't going to do shit to Hiei because he's fireproof. Afternoon Tiger might do some damage, and, Midnight Guy might do some damage. But Hiei, I think, honestly, Hiei is the one who takes it. Apparently, he just seems to have a general advantage over most Naruto characters. Anyway, in my opinion. So, and plus, he's got more versatility than Guy does, by far. So, yeah, Guy, I think, loses this fight. If you're a Guy fan, sorry. Castlevania Dracula versus The Mask. Now, look. The Mask is not infallible. But The Mask is a very tricky opponent because he's a gag character, a comic character. He can do pretty much anything he wants so long as it's funny, Toon Force. Dracula has a lot of advantages to him, but he's not one of those individuals who I think would counteract the abilities of Toon Force or anime logic or anything like that. I don't think he has that level of power. Add on the fact that The Mask could probably just use the, magic satchel of cartoon what-ifery and just pull out the weapon needed to kill Dracula. I think, yeah, Dracula unfortunately loses. And that's really sad to say. So yeah, Dracula versus The Mask. The Mask, I think, takes it. Then we have Tatsumaki versus Machamp. So, yeah, Machamp, let's be honest, he loses this fight. He loses it pretty hard, pretty fast, pretty strong. And I think the biggest reason for that is this fight doesn't need to go to the ground. She doesn't need to fight him close range. She uses psychic abilities, and him being a fighting type, he is completely and utterly weak to psychic type moves. So there you go. Tatsumaki wins. Static versus Black Canary. I think Canary would put up a okay fight, but Static's level of power, as we learned for Death Battle, is a little through the roof. To the point where I don't see Static being able to lose this fight. I don't think Canary. I was about to say Static being able to win, but Canary I think loses this fight. I just think Static's far too versatile of an opponent with far too much power in ways to offset other people's powers, like you being able to heal himself with his static electricity, creating shields, his actual physical attacks, all that. Yeah, he's just, I think he's too tough of an individual for someone like Black Canary to handle. So, Static Shock. Red Ranger versus Winter Soldier. This was a tough one because Leonardo I thought was going to win that fight, and I was dead wrong. Yeah, I got. See, I argue for Winter Soldier because he's more experienced. Unlike Leonardo, he has far more durability. I think it's a very big thing to talk about. His arm, is shatterproof pretty much. He's actually carries more weaponry on him than Leonardo does. So even though, is it Tommy? No, it's not Tommy. I can't remember. Jason's got a lot of durability thanks to the power grid or the morphing grid. I still running low on battery here. Ooh boy. Hopefully we're almost done here. So yeah, I'm gonna go Winter Soldier on that. Next one would be Obi-Wan versus War Machine. Tough call. I think because of the Force and a lightsaber, I'm gonna go Obi-Wan on that. I'm really low on battery, so I'm now speed blitzing all the rest of these. Esdeath versus Krona. She's gonna freeze all her black. Krona's, I can't say her because Krona's gender's not in the script. Gonna freeze all the black blood, so I'm gonna say Esdeath on that. Booster Gold versus John Talbot. Sorry, it's Booster Gold. He's too powerful. John does not have the ability to take on Booster Gold, especially after we saw what happened in the fight. Beerus versus Spider-Gwen. Beerus just Hakai's her once, and she's gone. That's all she wrote. Danny Phantom. Whoa, 1 second. Get all the way up there, please. Danny Phantom versus. Oh, come on. No, don't do this. Don't do this. Where'd you go? Oh, I lost it. It was Danny Phantom versus Sanji. Where the hell did Danny Phantom's thing go? Oh, that's irritating. That's really irritating. Oh, that's at the bottom now. Come on, get all the way to the top, please. There we go. Okay, Danny Phantom versus Sanji. The only thing Sanji really had difficult with Danny is the intangibility and invisibility. Even not the invisibility because he's got observation hockey, but the intangibility I think would be a little bit of a problem. Other than that, though, Danny doesn't have the firepower to take out Sanji, so Sanji wins that fight. Ganon versus Batman Beyond, Terry McGinnis. Ganon's too powerful. If Terry had time to study all Ganon's weaknesses with the help of Bruce, maybe he'd come out and win, but that's not how Death Battle works. So Ganon, too durable, too magical, too strong. Then we had Tracer versus Mewtwo. Oh god, that's a tricky one because of her time jumping ability. Ultimately, because of just the sheer level of psychic abilities that Mewtwo has, I had to go Mewtwo. And Mewtwo's one of the only Pokemon that can Mega Evolve without a trainer, so add that onto there. I just think she really can't do anything. He just creates a shield and it's done. Last but not least, Lara versus Naruto. I think that's obvious. It's Naruto who wins that fight. Lara has guns, but Naruto is literally cloaked in chakra and has a giant demon fox. So ultimately, that is round one of the winner-take-all Death Battle tournament. We'll go to round one, part one. We'll do part two next Sunday. I'll have the new bracket up tomorrow. Have enough people, giving people enough time to watch this video. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you folks next time. I'm almost out of battery, so I got to stop now. Later.